All right, David, let's be fair here. Explain to us what the Biden administration's goal is as it relates to China, and if what they are doing now and why what they are doing now, which appears like appeasement, is worth it.
So there were some achievable goals from this visit and some that were maybe out of reach. The most achievable one is just to reopen diplomatic discussions to show that a high-ranking official could go over to China and have nice meetings. I would note that President Xi wasn't expected to meet with Blinken. It was supposed to be Blinken and the foreign minister of China, so it's nice that President Xi showed up. Another thing that should have been achievable that certainly the administration wanted and Blinken asked for is military-to-military communications, because the Biden administration is very worried about an inadvertent confrontation between our militaries because they're operating in the same theaters. Unfortunately, reporting suggests he did not get that. More difficult to achieve would be meeting eye to eye on Taiwan. They don't meet on that. Or on human rights. Another thing that the administration wants in the future is the possibility of arms control talks, because China has the most ambitious program to build a nuclear arsenal, and that's worrisome. So there were some things achieved, but a lot of long-term things they're for next meetings.
No, nothing was achieved. What's really interesting about this is I agree the one big thing that would have been really good is to get those military-to-military communications going. Not because, the United States is concerned about inadvertent escalation, but that's because the Chinese are flying and sailing really close to American and ally aircraft and seacraft in international waters. This has actually gotten worse since China sent its spy balloon across the United States. That's what caused Anthony Blinken to cancel the last trip. The thing that worries me is we didn't even require China to decrease its provocations before they had this meeting. And then we had a series, we didn't get that military communications. We did get a lot of bad images that came out of this, where the Chinese had Anthony Blinken sitting on the side with Xi Jinping at the head of the table, Xi Jinping looking very strong and prominent with Anthony Blinken looking more, to the background and desperate for a handshake. So this was not a good trip for Anthony Blinken.
Yeah, but here's the question, though. At least for those who are not attuned to the China-U.S. International relations issues. Why? Why is China provoking us on the military front? Why are they having these meetings? They seem to be driving the negative narrative here. It begs the question, what does China want from the U.S. or want generally by these provocations?
I looked back. President Trump visited China in 2017. And if you look at the issues on the table, they were much more limited. It was just about North Korea and it was about trade talks. Now there are about 10 different issues that Blinken had to discuss. What does China want? China is very worried about the incursion of a democracy, of NATO, of the West, on what China's goals are, which is to become a superpower. And this is, there's more than just, though, the competition between two potential superpowers. This is a competition between two systems of government, between democracy and between authoritarian government.
David, we've yet to hear anything demanded of the Chinese in return for all of this stuff. Anthony Blinken walks over to China without getting an apology for the spy balloon, without any kind of return deliverables. We're saying what we want from China. China hasn't given us anything.
Whoa.
He stands up, hold on, he stands up there and he goes through this whole litany of things about we don't want an independent Taiwan. The Chinese loved all that. What did he get of the Chinese in any way lowering their positions, number one? And number two, these are people who consistently say they are the victims and America is terrible. Why shouldn't they have to reverse some of their statements if we're going to sit there and say Taiwan should be some part of China?
Blinken did not give up anything on this trip. Remember, we shot down the spy balloon, okay? So we don't need an apology. We don't need an apology. It landed in the ocean. And by the way, has there been another spy balloon? Have there been more? Have they encroached on our airspace? We don't know that they have. Perhaps China has backed off.
But have their encroachment, but they're buzzing our planes.
But I would say there's something else that's also really important that I want to mention that Blinken wanted, and maybe he got it in private discussions, which is he wants China to stay out of Ukraine. He doesn't want China to provide lethal weapons to Russia. So far, they haven't. And that may be the most important short-term goal, and maybe he got some concessions from China behind the scenes on that.
Well, Leland, China has been providing component parts that go into Russia's war machine.
It has.
China is the biggest backer of Russia's war effort against Ukraine. But Joe Biden even provided cover for the Chinese spy balloon by saying he thinks that they were really embarrassed by it and that it was an accident. He made that comment just yesterday, I think it was. And so again and again, now I'm going to defend the United States here. We are the ones that are defending the status quo. We want free and international open waters, trade. We're the ones that are trying to maintain something that we have benefited, an order we have benefited from, and other democracies, other partners have benefited from. China is now strong enough, to your point, Scott, strong enough militarily and economically that they're pushing us around and they're seeing how far they can go. Unless there is a hard response from this administration, we should expect the provocations, the aggression to continue.
And what type of response is that?
Well, I think
by example.
Well, I think one great example would be back when that spy balloon came over to the United States. We heard from Kirby, the Pentagon press secretary, that we were going to hear more about this global fleet of spy balloons. Let's hear about that. But we've now tabled that because we don't want to offend the Chinese.
I'll give you one, Scott, and then I'm going to take the last word myself. How about releasing the evidence about where COVID came from?
Where COVID
Okay,
Wuhan. Wuhan.
Patients 1, 2, and 3 with COVID. Okay, release that evidence, and you want to actually push back on the Chinese. You're nodding along. That would definitely.
I think that the release was delayed so that Blinken could have this visit, but I think it will be released, and I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.